Hello sinners, saints, my fellow ribs and the glories of men, welcome back to another video. This one's not for smiling. So today my whole family actually participated in the March for Life in Brisbane, which is probably Brisbane's largest pro-life rally throughout the year. Unfortunately, numbers have dwindled over the years, whether that be for a multitude of reasons, like Queenslanders getting complacent on the pro-life issue, or the level of stardom of the speakers that can be pulled. Don't deny it, Martin Isles definitely does bring a crowd. But I had some reflections from the day. We got there just in time for the speakers to start, and we participated in the full march, and then observed some of the idolatry afterward. And that leads into my first point. I am super thankful for the ecumenical insight that Catholics and a lot of fringe Christian groups provide, even atheists and Mormons, in the pro-life sphere. I'm very thankful for their continued support, their diligent stance, sometimes being stronger than that of Protestants. Catholics have been very ahead on the IVF issue, not for reasons that I would particularly agree with, but they have been ahead on that issue. And so I am thankful for the ecumenicalness of such an event, getting to march alongside people who I would disagree with massively in theology, but I am able to unite with in this really life or death issue, if we're being actually honest. But then, of course, I'm also grieved by the displays of idolatry. For example, the Catholics present had a statue of Mary that they carried throughout the march, and then afterward, prayed the rosary. There was a moment of kneeling before the statue of Mary afterward, and a prayer was spoken. And it's such a reminder. It was definitely a moment of like the internet interactions that you have with Catholics, and they're like, we don't worship Mary, we venerate her. And you look at a situation like that and you're like, well, why are you doing all the things that are aspects of worship? And it was just really sad. Yeah, the idolatry was disappointing, and a little bit heartbreaking in that sense. And I guess that brings me to the next kind of issue / reflection I had. I'm thankful for the speakers that were there on the day. They were some fantastic speakers who have definitely a range of skills, but brought other issues into the fray. Now, voting, of course, in the pro-life matter, we have an election coming up, so it's natural to be talking about the election. But bringing in very fringe ideas and topics, and I say this as someone who believes in a lot of those fringe ideas and topics, I don't think is entirely helpful to the cause. For the most part, this should be a single issue event. It's about life. It's about the pro-life fight, especially in Queensland. Don't distract your base with secondary issues. And I say this, the gospel being an exception, of course, but that's not what I was talking about. There was discussion on climate change and COVID, and I'm going to say conspiracies, even though I believe a lot of them myself, but getting into some real fringe stuff, that's like, this isn't the time or place right now. Like, it's not the time to be doing this. So that was interesting. I think if you're running a march, it needs to be a single issue of it. Of course, as you do at any protest, there'll be counter-protesters, and there was a few of them. What struck me as interesting, though, was that there was a male one there. A male one who was fighting quite vocally and was rather loud. And that led me to wonder, what has happened in your life that grieves you and cuts you so deeply that simply people gently and firmly standing on the issue of life and the sanctity of human life causes you to act so rapidly, and reminds me how a lot of pro-choice protests happen out of almost a deep, brutal grief, of a deep regret that is within the innermost being of someone. Abortion takes a life, yes, but it also splits a soul. And so, yeah, that just moved me in a way. I definitely feel for pro-choice protesters whose motivation is to, in a sense, cover their own guilt. But ultimately, events like these are a fantastic reminder about how barbaric abortion actually is. Now, I won't go into the details. If you're a pro-lifer, you've probably seen many videos of what happens in an abortion, including late-term abortions, sex-selective abortions. All abortion is horrific, but sometimes there's ones that you're just like, far out. You're really taking it to a new level. Abortions to cover up human trafficking. There's just some really grievous situations where abortion is present, and there's no good that comes out of it. There's no ultimate lasting good. There's a lot of grief. There's a lot of pain, and that's evident by the people who turn up to counter protest. So ultimately, one day I would love to see a world where abortion is not legal, and may that come to pass. Anyway, that's all for today. Grace and peace from our Lord and Saviour, and I'll see you tomorrow.